kind of ends up like him. So we have four. You have
Four. Myself and John.
Oh,
Say watch. I can't. Okay.
all right. We'll give Reggie a break. Sort of reminding me that Mike's hot always. So, ready? All right, thank you, man. All right, we will call our special joint meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the School Board to order. Mr. Kelly, would you like to do something?
Oh, yes. Carolina County School Board, special meeting with the Board of Supervisors. I obviously am present, Mr. Copeland, Mr. Taylor, and Dr. Hubbard. And we have a quorum, correct, Ms. Stevens?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right, and the Board of Supervisors has four, so we by definition have a quorum also. Introductions are really not necessary because we all know Dr. Hubbard, former Marine Colonel.
No, sir, never such thing, no. What's
Always a Marine.
Always Marine.
Retired Colonel.
Thank you, sir.
I do that with Kevin Whiteman, just so he'll say the same thing. So he's your new board member here. Mr. Fortune is in attendance in the audience, and Ms. Sears is in attendance. So you have all of your current board, except for Mrs. Carson, who represents Mattapanai. We're very disappointed she's not here. And Mr. Copeland, you thought yesterday was your last meeting. That's why we planned this one. We could have one more to say thank you for what you've done and to say goodbye when that time comes. So any other introductions? The Board of Supervisors has remained the same, so we don't have any turnover. Mr. Kelly. That's it. If you'd like to talk about anything else as far as our norms of operation.
Aside from just to say, appreciate the opportunity to come and meet with you guys again. And I think communication is the number one thing. Like I said last night, is I think everybody in this room and at this table has the same destination in mind. And the only discussion points we have is what path we're going to take to get there. But I appreciate any opportunity. I'm glad the two new board members, three, if you count Dr. Hubbard, who started last night, get an opportunity to just see how it works. And I think we have a pretty good agenda to just give you guys some updates about where we stand in the middle of the academic year.
All right, we really appreciate that. This is not really a big decision-making meeting. It's more of an informational session, so you folks can let us know where we are, and I will let you take the lead.
Starting with the budget amendment and appropriations, all in state funds that are coming to us. I'm going to defer to Dr. Calveric or Marcia, who can give you the meat of the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. If you will open up the folder of materials that we shared this evening, we did order all of the documents according to the agenda, or at least we believe we did. And so the first item that you will see is, of course, the FY24 budget amendment appropriation. It is my understanding, based on word from Mr. Parton, that this is currently on your consent agenda. We appreciate it being on the consent agenda. There is no new local money being requested, but we wanted you to have a good understanding of the governor's revised budget so that you understood where the money is located and how we are utilizing the funding. So if you take a look, you will see that our school board has already approved this amendment, and we have $474,458 of basic aid. $39,455 of at-risk add-on funding. And all of that money was used to support, or is being used to support, the 3 bullets noted right below, which are the addition of 4 ESSER support positions to local dollars. So of course, as ESSER 3 funds are nearing expiration of September 30, 2024, we have a very detailed spreadsheet. We've been meeting every other month and quarterly with our ESSER committee and evaluating the benefits of all of the positions that have been associated with ESSER funds. And we have been determining which of those positions can be eliminated because maybe the yield or the data indicates we no longer need them. Or we have found other ways to then re-engage those positions into local funds or additional state monies. We also have identified the need for 5 new exceptional education para educators. We just submitted our December 1 count to the state, and we have grown at the beginning of the school year in special education by over 50 students. And I will share with you, within a 2-week time period, we had about 4 students or 5 students that have multiple physical disabilities, including being potentially wheelchair bound. And if you know anything about students with IEPs who have wheelchair needs or skilled nursing needs, it requires 2 adults for transport or lifting. And so when we enrolled 4 to 5 wheelchair bound students at one building in a 2-week time period, we needed to hire a new teacher as well as these 5 para educators to accommodate these special education needs. So we were grateful to have these funds so that we could readily do that to service these families and these students. We have a $254,965 increase in state money. All of that money, in addition to a portion of the money above, is being used to do a 1% increase for all employees. As you know, the governor proposed a 2% salary increase. We are doing a 1% retroactive for the whole school year, and that will go live in the January paycheck. They will receive retroactive pay for all contracted employment beginning July 1, 2023 through the January paycheck, and then the remaining amount of that 1% will be divided between the remaining 2024 paychecks through June 30. We have exceeded the 10% that the governor had proposed for the biennium being the 2 years of FY23 and FY24. And you will see what I mean when I say we've exceeded 10%. We worked together in partnership to maximize the state monies and the available local monies to really work on compensation. And we're so appreciative of that. And we outlined that down below just so you have that historical data. I will not belabor that, but you can see what we did in FY23. We not only did an overall raise, but we also did the step 1 of the 2022 salary study, which was extremely critical. Steps 0 to 17 were so much lower than 18 and beyond, and we really needed to raise them before we could even move into step 2. And then we also did some targeted increases in FY23 for our support staff, some of our lower paid employee categories, which I know we've spoken a lot about. So our custodians, food service, attendants, clerks, etc. And then, of course, we moved forward with a 5% this year. So we had already exceeded, and so we did not need to come and ask for additional local money. We used what was provided by the governor, and we were able to accomplish that 1%. We certainly want to make you aware of all-in funding as well. This is one-time money. It is expected to be used in a 70-20-10% breakdown. We have $1,810,705. 70% is to be used for all-in intense tutoring. We have 20% earmarked for the Virginia Literacy Act and 10% for chronic absenteeism. We will be doing a very rich presentation as a 2.0 to our school board in January, and we'd be happy to share that with you if you'd like more detail there. And that totals the 2.5 million that you see in the revenue column and how we are utilizing those funds. Those all-in monies, just for awareness, do carry over into FY25. So we're talking really about some strong, intense tutoring, work with Virginia Literacy Act and chronic absenteeism from this fall through June of 2025. And so that gives us almost about a year and a half of strong implementation. Any questions on that left-hand side?
Mr. Forehand?
What are the restrictions on the tutoring money? Does it have to be current school employee? Can it be third party? Yada, yada.
It can be any of those items that you just shared. As a matter of fact, the VDOE has a website right now where people that are interested in tutoring from the community or civic organizations or higher education can go right onto the website and register. And then we are able, as school entities, to go into that database and start contacting. What we're choosing to do, just to give you a little bit of an update, is for the tutoring. We looked at all of our at-promise students that fall into the range of grades 3 through 8 that are eligible for tutoring based on the criteria. And we calculated out how much we can spend a month in order to get the tutoring to last for that year and a half. And so we have just posted a position called All-In Tutor that is based on the paraeducator pay scale. So not only are we hiring 19 new paraprofessionals to serve as tutors, but they're also getting VRS and they're getting benefits in that year and a half time. We're doing that in order to get a consistent employee showing up to school every single day.
So this is done inside of school hours?
We are choosing to because we did a survey of our community and we asked about all 3 of the all-in components, and we asked, do you want AM, PM, in school, or weekend hours? And the #1 priority was to service students during the school day. Removes that transportation barrier as well. We're doing all of it. We're even talking about a Saturday school, but our primary money will be for the in-school tutoring.
Is it I guess it is an option if a teacher wants some extra money.
Yes.
They can sign up for that and provide tutoring services.
There are 19 full-time tutors that we're looking for. And then we also have some additional funds remaining, which will be hourly tutoring. So we're hiring for both, but we're finding that we're going to get our greatest bang for our buck during the school hours with that permanent employee who will also have some benefits along the way.
Any other questions?
How do you,
No, go ahead.
doing tutoring during the school day means you have to take the child out of some class already. And how do they benefit from tutoring if you don't do it outside of their normal school hours? Because what I've heard from parents is that they're already struggling where they're at,
Sure.
and taking them out isn't going to help.
This will, there'll be a combination of push in and pull out services. And so it'll be dependent upon the student's profile. Push in, it's called acceleration tutoring. It's not remediation tutoring. That's being used in this governor's funding, that acceleration tutoring is more advantageous than remedial. And so what that means is you're pre-teaching skills to students in relation to what is to come. So they have some background knowledge and some prior knowledge before they entertain new content. And so that is the approach that is being required of this all-in tutoring approach. And so we have, specifically at the middle school, we're under a new schedule where we have a 90-minute block one day and a 45-minute block the next day for English and language arts. On that 45-minute day, we're doing the flood-in model. And what that means is, for example, Sarah could be an English teacher, and I have my 45-minute block with my first block students. I have my 26, 27 kids in my class. Well, it's going to be me. Maybe I have a special ed teacher, and then 2 paras are going to flood in. So you're now taking 4 adults and you're breaking that student teacher ratio down. and they're being serviced in class during that time with the acceleration model. The kids that do not need it will get enrichment, and the kids that do need the services will get the acceleration tutoring.
What about the third graders that are still behind in reading, and the fourth graders that, because that's the complaint that I hear the most, is that they're behind.
It's the same model, flood-in model, where there's a period of time, and we do intervention enrichment blocks. That's a standard across K-12 education, where you're servicing and supporting in-house. To require students to stay after school or before school is not as an effective model. It works for some, and that's why we'll still have those hourly tutors, because some of those students stay after, but we've been doing after school tutoring for years, and we're not garnering the results that we need from after school tutoring. Children aren't staying after school. We have a late bus that comes around 5:30, 5:45, and so the day is very long. Families have other activities. So that's why we are doing kind of the soups to nut approach of, we're talking about Saturday school, in school supports, after school supports, lunch buddy supports, where maybe instead of going to 5 days a week, they go to the library and they're getting tutoring during lunch. So that is the approach that is widely acknowledged across the Commonwealth right now.
Like we're trying to educate their kids despite the parents. That's what it
Well, that's
sounds
a
like.
perspective, Mr. Forehand.
But
I mean,
if
I hate to
could just-
say it, but that's exactly what it sounds like. If they're not even having their kids behind, they're not putting forth the effort to even get them caught up. That's something to be addressed one way or another. Not y'all's responsibility.
Sure. We would love
But it's
increased parental engagement. We actually had a speaker come last evening and request some additional training for Virginia Literacy Act and Science of Reading for parent populations. So we already started talking about that today. We would love increased parent engagement. When we start the Saturday school and the after school tutorial, we need to work in tandem with the families. Yes, sir.
If I could just add too.
Calvin, can I let, Reggie do the
Okay.
question first?
Oh,
and then we go
sure,
back to you?
sure. I'm sorry. Dr. Kelberg,
Yes, sir.
the,
Hello.
good afternoon. The number of special ed children has increased. Do you guys have a breakdown of classifications and the impact on the regular classroom?
We have a breakdown, yes, sir, by
Is it-
classification. What do you mean when you say the impact on the classroom?
Well, some of the students are in the regular classroom, so I want to see what the impact is into those classrooms,
Some special ed students.
special ed students, in terms of,
So are you
Are they
looking for the number
causing-
of collaborative students that we have in an inclusion model?
if you have inclusion, if
We
you're doing
do.
inclusion, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, I'd like to see what the impact there that it's having.
Sure, we will happily share data. Marcia, I see you writing that
If I
down
can get the
for me.
classifications of students, whether they're
Their disability.
self-contained, so we have an idea of where the biggest impact is.
Yes, we can give you all of that information with anonymity, of course, with no attached identifier.
No, I don't want, just a number.
I know you don't. I'm just saying that for the benefit of the public.
We have to make it. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I just wanted to add, you were talking about the impact of the children, taking them out of a class, or working with them while they're in the class. Kids tend to, work when they feel like they're doing something that they want to do. Kids don't want to stay after school, for the most part. They don't want to stay, they don't want to come on Saturday for the most part. But if they're in an English class, and it's a 45-minute block, and they're having issues, if there is somebody who can pull them and work with them within that class, that affects the attitude of the child. And that affects the child's impact as far as learning is concerned. So I think you're gonna see an improvement in the students' ability to garner the information that we're trying to teach them. Partly because they have the help that they need, and partly because their attitude is going to be different. So hopefully that we'll see that.
That's a great point. Dr. Kellenberg, I had a question. In the sheet we have, you have revenues on one side, which I take it is the way the state gave us the money. They gave you the money,
Correct.
and then you, allocated that money to what's on the right side as far as expenditures. During your initial presentation, you said some of that would carry over to next fiscal year. So at the end of the year, or before the end of the year, you'll have to identify some funds that are going to, remain, so we'll know at the end of the year that these are carryover funds for that particular category, which I imagine will be instructional for the most part.
That is correct, all associated with all-in funds. We will absolutely be certain to give you an update as we get to that point in the school year.
And we will defer the revenue, is what we will do.
Yeah.
And then we can get treated.
Oh, all right. So we won't actually see the revenue come in, but you'll defer it until July 1st.
We will see it all come in this year, and then we will do a deferral entry for the funds that are remaining at the end of the year.
That sounds good.
Dr. Tilbury.
Yes, sir.
The 1% supplement, so that is all state money, correct?
It is all state money.
And so what you said, and I'm just make clear, you're gonna take 1% and go retroactive or go back. So are they getting it all like at one time?
They will get the July 1 through their January employment. That's contractual employment in the January paycheck.
Okay.
And then the remainder of the 1% will be divvied up into the number of paychecks that remain through June 30 of 2024. And you can see behind this sheet, we did give you a copy. And this is hot off the press. We haven't even shared this really with our school board yet because we just concluded and wrote it today. A copy of the letter, and thank you, I don't have one in my folder. But you can see this is what we are hoping. Do y'all have this right here? It's on letterhead. This is what we're hoping to put out tomorrow morning. We did not want to be presumptuous. We know it's on the consent agenda, and we were holding tight until it was approved and appropriated. And then once that occurs this evening, God willing, we'll go ahead and we'll put this out. But we just wanted you to know what the messaging was that was going out so that our staff was very clear on the 1% and our historical work together associated with progress and compensation.
And again, on that point to highlight, the state gave you 2%, but only for the standard of quality people, which again, the state differentiates and causes the school board to spread that money over the entire staff.
Correct. And the proposal was to do a 10% over the biennium, which we had already exceeded. And so rather than coming back to the locality and, asking for that additional 1% to do the 2%, we felt like because we had done solid work together that we really wanted to just hold tight for FY25,
Right.
and we can talk more diligently about what we need to do for this next fiscal year.
Oh, no, but again, my point is the way Richmond treats the school system.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fair that they would say
True.
these people get raises and these people don't. So
So true.
that's really the point. Mrs.
And
Sealy, you had a follow up, and then Mr. Black.
Yeah, so when we did you said that this is gonna be, the 1% will be retroactive to 1 June. Or 1 July. So when you did the step increases for 22 that we funded at the almost
At the end of the year.
Right. And that was gonna actually fund, you said that would give every teacher some bigger check for what they didn't get the rest of the year for steps 0 through 18. Did that take place? Because I'm not sure I found anybody that ever got the check that would have given them that.
Mr. Sealy, all of the money has been appropriated to each person that was eligible for that.
Yeah.
It
What
was
do you
paid
mean
in
by
the
eligible?
June paycheck.
The teachers that fall into step 0 to 17 all received the new scale payment in their June paycheck, retroactive for the year. It varied. There's some percents were small and some percents were large. It depends on which step of that scale you are on. So some may see as much as, what was one of the
Close
highest?
to 3,000.
And some may have
It was about
$200, $500.
But an average teacher with 5 years should have seen a fairly substantial amount of money.
I can't speak to that without the scale in front of me. I
guess
wouldn't
it
want to
depends on what step
inaccurately
they're in.
communicate.
Well, no,
but
they were 5 years, they're on step 2 or 3 or
But they
One
could have
or
been
two.
hired up at a higher step, right? depending on their
A teacher in 5
qualifications.
years would come
Step-
in at
step-
step 4,
Yeah.
because
start
0
step
is year
zero.
1.
Right, but they should have seen more than $100.
Not necessarily, and I don't have the scale in front. I mean, they would have seen more than $100 because we just shared that, but one of the lower amounts was 500, upwards of 3,000. But it depends on where they fall on the scale.
Plus, yeah, the other thing too is when you get money all at once,
Net
sometimes
taxes,
the
too.
taxes eat you alive. Yeah. I mean, when it comes in a June paycheck all in one lump sum, you get hit hard by it. You do. I mean, it's just a reality behind it. My second question was, is this money that the state is giving you, is that one-time money, or is that something that is going to be ongoing? Because a lot of times the state will give us, I mean, we know how they play the game. And then it has to be picked up by the locality later on. So is that money for that 1%, is the state gonna continue to give that money?
That is sustainable funding. The all-in funding is one time. And please interject if I've misspoken, but
Right.
Yes, so the basic aid, at-risk, and compensation supplement are continuing funding based on the new biennium budget when he presents. The all-in was one time, and what he proposed was a 2% raise effective January of 2024 with the SOQ positions. We were able to, the 1% raise for all staff is costing us $375,000. So we were able to take some of the extra basic aid. We didn't add additional positions. We were able to use that to support the 1% for all staff for the whole year.
Okay. And my final question, and then I'll move on. I know it's at the very bottom, the request for step 2 of your salary study. One of the things from BACO is all of the counties are, when we go down there, there's 35, 36 members of BACO, and it doesn't matter if they're from Wise County or Fairfax County. There's all the same message among supervisors across the state that the state has been playing with us for a long time on money, and then we're the ones who take it up. The frustrating part from supervisors is there was a feeling that school systems, as long as they're getting the money, doesn't care where it comes from. And is like, so if you need $3 million to do a raise and the state
Right.
gives you 500,000, well, as long as Caroline Board of Supervisors gives you 2.5 million. What is being done? I guess my question is, what is being done? Are you guys doing in any ways any formal lobbying to yes, okay. Because the pressure needs to be put on, because here's where I get is when we get the budget season, we get there's a letter that goes out, teachers come to the Board of Supervisors meeting, our teachers flooding the House delegates. I mean, seriously, because it's only fair, and and I tell the teachers too, you flooding the school board. Are you flooding everything? I mean, because we're not the only one that's here that deals with schools. And I think that needs to be some equal pressure put on the state for that JLARC study that came out.
Well, I was just going to say, Mr. Bach, I completely agree with you. I think if there ever was a sweet spot for elected officials, both on the school board and a town council or a board of supervisors to work in tandem, this is the season, because the JLARC study completely documents on multiple levels how underfunded so many facets: construction, special education, instruction, compensation, all of that is cleanly outlined. So we have the narrative. We just have to come together and we have to do the advocacy. We as a board go to the legislative entities in January. We happily can let you know when we're doing that, when we're going to visit. If the board, I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the board, so I'm going to eyeball those in the room. And if everybody would be comfortable, we can let you know when we're doing that, and we can go together and speak as a unit. I think that would be really powerful. And then you can see within our legislative document, I think is in the back of your folder, these are the things that we are going to be lobbying for. And a lot of that is undergirded by that JLARC study and the LCI.
Right.
Because our LCI, I shared with our school board in our Friday update a few weeks ago, the LCI went down, which for us means we're going to get more state money at the beginning of the biennium, which is good.
Right.
That will help us. My fear is, and I spoke with Mr. Culley and Mr. Parton and Miss Smith, Morgan. Thank you, Miss Morgan, to retrain my brain, Miss Morgan. We talked about the fact that a little bit of fear is for me, less for Mr. Cully, that when the local composite index so we've got the 25-26 fiscal years are this 2-year biennium. When we go 27-28, our assessments that we just recently done will kick in, and our LCI might increase because of that assessment. So these 2 years, we're gonna have more state money coming in, but it's that after the biennium that we may see a change. Now, Mr. Cully, if he was here, would say that hopefully other localities are going to be experiencing that same scenario, and it will level itself out a bit.
Yeah.
But
That's what the
But
state-
but in the end,
Yeah,
the state
I'm
has to be
not
putting more total money in.
Right.
And then the other thing too is. I
Mention the
mean,
JLOC study again.
Yeah, right.
You know, really, that's where the joint legislature says the
Right.
state doesn't give schools enough
Right.
money, so.
I think another thing too is, I mean, because the teachers are never afraid to send us an email in March and April. I mean, I would hope that you guys are telling them the same thing, that you need to, this is the time to be, emailing them. Because we're flooded, we are flooded with plenty of teachers from Caroline County Public Schools on ours. But I mean, it's not gonna really do any good if the teachers aren't doing the same thing with their legislatures, and there's less of them to deal with.
I will take that away as an action item. I think that's a great suggestion. We have taken our teachers of the year to the legislature in the past. I don't know that we've done that since COVID though. So it might be time to re-enter that phase of engagement. So we'll write that down.
I think that'd be a great point, because we had a couple of teachers that came to the board presentation. I remember the one teacher who said she was having difficulty buying groceries.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of teacher at the House of Delegates would have a lot of impact. So,
Sure.
if you could bring them,
I think it says a lot that we go down and we meet with delegates ourselves collectively. I think it would say a whole lot if 1 or 2 of you would come with us down there and say that, hey, we're just invested in this process as much, because you guys, I mean, you're paying what you can. I mean, that's everybody, we know what the books are.
Right.
If you guys go down there and say the same thing, we all want to get to the same place. But if we could get a couple of guys from the board of super or lady to come down with us, we carpool, don't worry.
We go in late January, I think, was it February? I didn't go this year, so I don't remember, but I know you guys go first. The schools go first because it's the day of red, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's the red bread.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll try to go with you, and then you can come back and go with us.
That would be
That
great.
would be wonderful.
Another aspect, and I don't know how VACO works, but BAS will send me very last minute requests for lobbying. And they'll say, this is going to the floor and we need your input. If you're interested, and it looks like something that would really relate to both entities, I'd be happy to forward those to you. And if you want to also write a letter to our representatives, then you would have that information. Just so that we're on the same page, because we're ripe for change. At least I hope we are. I'm a half
I
glass
think
full kind of girl.
I'm sure we'd agree that the state doesn't give us enough money,
Amen.
so we can, go there on that positive note.
Mhm.
Question,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Talbert. I know I haven't seen an article that summarizes the issues. Have you read an article that summarizes the current state of affairs in public education funding?
For JLAR,
Yeah,
there've been a number of articles that have come out.
I've heard just
Oh, yeah.
anecdotal stuff and a blurb here and a blurb there, not a lengthy explanation of the details, which is
I've got it, I'll make sure I send it to you.
thank you.
I think Dr. Calvert posted it on Facebook or something. I saw it, because I went there and got it. I think,
Couple.
yeah, I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The only thing, somebody mentioned this, the all-in funding is 1.8 million one-time money.
One-time money, yes, sir.
So that's going into instruction, but it's going to be used in instruction for one-time costs, right?
It's going into instruction, but also there is some transportation expense associated with that as well. Yes.
But I mean, the fact that you got one-time money in instruction is not something we'll see stay level or increase. So it's going to be a big jump this year, and then it'll go back down next year.
This is the money that'll carry into next year, so we'll be spending part of it this year. You'll see
Over
the
2
large,
years.
you'll see it over the 2 years, and then that will go down.
But it's not
Yes.
half this year, half next year.
No,
It's
we'll only
any
get
sort of-
one semester in this year by the
Right,
time we
right.
get employees hired.
Okay, I know that's usually a question on our side. All right, that's a great overview to start. You want to tell us about the HVAC project?
Sure, I'll pass that over to Marcia, because today was a hot day for us.
So quick update on the CMS HVAC, the ESCOs requested that they have an extension to submit bids to today. We received 3 of those, 3 of the vendors dropped out, 3 of them submitted bids. And the evaluation committee is meeting tomorrow. We will be evaluating bids. And we are already have set up for them to present their plans to us on Friday. So hopefully soon after that, we'll be able to close a bid process or at least have further discussions within that. Since we are in the procurement cycle at this time, there's limited information I can give you out about the bids received.
Who's going to pay for this?
We do have some ESSER money set aside for this project that we have provided in the past. In addition, so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we've also had 2 years of carryovers that you all have provided appropriation into this project. And then we will need to discuss further as to where it comes in at versus the funding available.
And I should have been a little more specific. The question is the school board can't borrow money.
Correct, sir.
So the county is gonna have to borrow money probably to make whatever the difference in the two turns out to be. Right?
I do think one topic that we discussed possibly at our last joint meeting, and Mr. Kelly just mentioned it to me, and he's 100% correct, is that we had spoken about the proffer funding. I think Mr. Kelly indicated that there is approximately $2 million.
I'll say 1.3.
1 million, 1.3,
Yes.
thank you. So that would be another acceptable use of those proffers because it is construction based. So that would be other monies we could discuss.
Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, the point is if you don't have enough money saved, we don't have enough money in proffers, the county's gonna have to borrow that money or find it somewhere else. And that's what I just wanna make sure we're aware of. Yes, sir.
What happened to the performance contract avenue to do this, where they were gonna come in? And I thought we'd solved the majority of this through contractors that were gonna come in, redo the system, and the money was gonna come back through the performance contract / evolution of that.
So that is the RFP, that's the ESCOs, the energy performance
So-
contract.
My understanding was that was gonna cover 80%, 70% of the cost.
That was never discussed, Mr. Sealy. Never did we
Wasn't our
mention
side.
80 or 70%.
Yeah, I think, but we never had what our delta was that we had to figure out how to pay for. So we did talk about the
Yeah,
performance.
we did have a delta for the cost.
Never an official delta.
Right, never an official, but we.
We had talked, cause you got like $3 million.
We have more than
Then-
$3 million.
More than- but yes.
Well, how much more?
Well,
Well, I mean,
I could pull the chart that we provided at a
They gave
previous
us-
joint meeting,
Yeah,
absolutely.
they did give us.
yeah, I mean, I thought you did, but if we're a couple of million short,
We were with the 10 million that was
Right.
out there.
yeah, that's.
Can we discuss energy performance?
So it's a
Yeah,
Right,
Correct.
that's,
We didn't know the number.
yeah, that's the point. It was 10 million before and we were short then.
Right, and we
We don't know how
threw
much.
rocks at that number.
We don't know what the rebids are, so
Right,
we could
and that's
be-
why we went out energy performance route, and that these are
There
the
you go.
3 vendors that have responded
Now-
in an energy performance
My
contract.
question that, if I recall from several years back, that funding came through the state versus us going to the open market. If I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Alan, maybe?
I think you're right.
that was it.
Mhm.
It's
The Department of Energy is working with us, so yes.
I have those numbers if you'd like for me to read them out loud. This is from our October 5th joint meeting. We have $3,015,909 from ESSER and CSL FRF ARP money. That's $3,015,909. we have $1,868,684 of FY '21 and FY '22 school carryover that you had appropriated for this project. And then we subtracted from that total, so those two amounts were about 4.8 million. We subtracted $845,201 from that because I believe that was the equipment that we have already purchased. So we were compliant with SR2, the timeline, which left us a remaining amount of $4,039,391.50. So that was using those funds. And then the additional funds that we had identified was construction grant money. And at that time, we had about $499,551 remaining. We had 1.377299.94 of proffers. And we had FY '23 carryover money, which we have not addressed. We said approximately $250,000, but the audit is still ongoing, so that number hasn't been finalized. So that gave us an approximate number of $6,166,242.44 of current monies. So we're hoping that the bid will obviously be far less than 10 million, but it may be more than the 6 million we have.
The proper money is that proper money, Mr. Parton, you know, is that proper money all for the schools?
Yes.
It is all school money, so they could use, that's from like houses in Pendleton and Leedsman Village and.
Yeah, that's the school portion of property.
Okay. So if they want to use it for that, then that's.
Through all property.
Right.
So
For all
Belmont.
projects, but if they want to go all in on this, then they. Yep, okay.
I do think it's important to mention, I think Mr. Whiteman is involved in
Yes.
tomorrow's meeting and Friday's meeting as well. So
Yes.
please know that he'll be at the table. And that as soon as that process closes, we'll be able to share those amounts according to procurement law. So we won't hold on to that. We want you all to be in the know. We all need
I
to be
wouldn't want you to say it
brainstorming.
out loud if they hadn't had it turned in your bid.
Say that again?
I wouldn't want you to say it out loud and on tape if they turned in the bid.
Today they turned them in.
Exactly.
Yeah, they turned them in today.
Yeah.
But
And
you still want to
RFP
tell us.
versus a IFP, so we still need to go through the evaluation process.
Do you ever, just out of curiosity, do you have a range about what you think, or is there?
I do not, but I'll look at Marcia. I don't know if she does. Yeah.
Let's.
Okay,
I don't think we're allowed to, but.
Right.
No.
But that, no,
Let
yeah,
that needs to travel on its own space.
Okay.
But that was just a brief update. That's what we
Okay.
know as of right now. We can certainly have more conversation.
Sorry, one last question. Heating is using the same system, but just not taxing the unit the same way? So we had cooling issues, are we having heating issues?
We had a cooling issue with a breaker. We
Oh.
replaced the breaker.
Okay, that was easy.
It was a large
It
breaker.
lasted a long time, but it didn't mean just a break.
Yes, it was a breaker. So we, that was the major piece of the AC issues. Heating, we are fine, we're working. Yes.
And this is really just the aging infrastructure that was identified through the air quality study that we did with ESSER funds. This was our one area that was identified. If you look at the stoplight system, it was red, meaning that its age was really a concern.
And it's starting to show.
It is. And that's what took some time with the breaker, being able to identify a breaker for that old system, getting it in-house, shipping across the US, et cetera. So
I understand.
I'm sending you this email from my personal email account. That's where it came from.
You don't need to route it through.
Be careful.
Just wanted everybody to know. All righty, you will just let us know where you are next week. So then we'll have a chance, let Mr. Cully know, and Mr. Parton, and then Mr. Parton can brief the rest of the board so we can plan a little on our part, just to make sure. Okay, CIP overview.
So I'm looking at my watch, it's 5:17, and so I want to make sure we get to 4 and 5, so we can be.
Let's skip this and go to 4 and 5.
Well, this is 4, this, at least on this sheet, I don't know
Okay.
what it is on the green, I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas.
That's
But
that's fine.
This right here is the CIP presentation in its totality. What was shared during first read to the school board. You have visuals included. And in the back, you not only have, of course, the total cost for FY25, but you have the 5-year span for FY25 to 29. The number is large, 36 million for FY25, but you have to please keep in mind that it is a returning figure of the transportation center. Which we've indicated, we have one bay that services buses that are over 70 passenger, and the majority of our buses are 77 student capacity. So our infrastructure in that center is aging, and we really do need to consider how we're going to maybe even partner and come up with one facility that the county and the schools both use to service our transportation in the future. So that's really the driver of that massive number.
In the HVAC project.
Yes.
The HVAC project, because it's still ongoing, still not funded, that is also included in the CIP.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So those both are large figures. The other items are things that you would be very familiar with as you're turning the page. You'll see classroom renovations such as cosmetology. You'll see track upgrades. You'll see a transportation activity bus, which is actually for the lab school. We have joined in partnership with the UMW Lab School for Advanced Technology and Innovation. And we need to be able to transport those 20 students out to the UMW Stafford campus. And so the most cost-efficient method to do that over time is for one of those smaller white buses, because the driver of that vehicle does not require a CDL license. So it also gives us flexibility with the who.
What's the capacity of the small?
I don't know what the capacity is, do you?
I think it's gotta be 15 or less, and anything more than 15 requires.
Yeah, these class A's, I want to say they're like between 10 and 15 off the top of my head. I'm not, but I can certainly provide that.
So year 1 of the lab school is only 9th grade, then year 2 will be 9th and 10th. Year 3 is, of course, including your junior. It's not until year 4 that we get to the full 20 seat capacity. And so at that point, you know, we will be reevaluating. These buses will also allow our smaller athletic and academic teams to travel, where the coach could drive the students, and we aren't reliant on a CDL bus driver in the afternoon, which many divisions are turning to because we're all have a need for drivers.
Dr. Kalberg, I noticed on the committee top priorities, the ADA compliances are last. In terms of priority, I think that may be something we need to look at. In terms of priority, and it's
So
Yeah.
this
ranking,
is,
in terms of ranking.
these are the items out of the multiple requests that came through that made it to the list. These are not in order.
They're not ranked in order. Okay.
Correct. So like the cosmetology lab is by no means over the ADA
Okay.
compliance.
Gotcha.
Those are just the
Okay.
items that the CIP committee and or on the next page, the school board identified as top priorities. Yes, sir.
I just didn't like that.
No, I totally understand and would agree with you.
So,
Yes, sir, Mr. Bly.
just one question, is this, one thing I'm not seeing on here is artificial turf? Oh, it is turf, the turf. So never mind, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. So you want a real mower, but then you also want a turf field.
Well, we need to be able to be prepared for both scenarios, and we also have the practice fields that are in desperate need of improvement. So we will have to adjust depending on if we do get an artificial turf, then the real mower may not be a necessity. If we don't get the artificial turf, then the real mower may rise in its importance. So planning for both option A and option B. What I will tell you is that I do believe, and I'll look to my counterparts on the other side, I think we're still operationalizing our new system for submission, and our access is still being configured. So as soon as that is finalized, Mr. Caldwell and Mrs. Stevens will make sure all of our data is ready to be submitted. In addition, our spreadsheet has all of the costs. It also has the years that these requests have been generated. So something may have been requested 5 years or maybe 6 years. So we thought that longitudinal history would be important as well, so that we can start taking a look at that data point when making decisions about funding. What else am I leaving off, Mrs. Stevens?
We will be meeting with planning department and providing them detailed overview, just explaining some of the projects more in depth with them come January.
Yeah, that's how the process works, and then you make the presentation to planning commission, and the planning commission will make a recommendation to the board
Correct.
based on what you two discussed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was obviously very high level, but that does allow us to get to this next topic, which I know is all of great interest to all of us, and that is a facility study. So the last PowerPoint, I promise, in your packet looks like this.
The last
It is. We shared this last evening with the school board. So this is hot off the press. We don't need to share with you exactly what a facility study is. I think you're very comfortable and confident that you know the components of a strong facility study, but they are outlined there for you. We wanted the public to be very cognizant of what this study will include. Why do we need this study? Well, we know that our student base continues to grow. As a matter of fact, our average daily membership reported at the school board meeting last night documented about 170
above budget.
171. Yes, thank you. 171 students above what we budgeted this year's fiscal budget on. So we're continuing to grow. You can see the data associated with the students in each of our buildings and the capacity. And so while we know that a study could yield a wide array of recommendations, we by no means are indicating that we believe or know we will build a new building. We just simply want to be prepared and gather the data for those conversations. So moving beyond the sheer numbers, the components of the study, we'll look at the capacity and the condition. We'll look at programmatic needs, obviously with career and technical education and our employment focus, and how that is really growing and expanding. We want to make sure that we're outfitted correctly in that arena, that we're able to meet our students with special needs, that we have growth associated with the rooftops that are coming our way. And right below that, you'll see we were blessed when we went out for RFP to get included within that architect and engineering services already. So you will see the 7 vendors, the 7 companies that have already been approved. And one thing that we didn't share last night for our school board's awareness is these are ranked in order. So we must start all of the 5 that are in bold. So Thompson, Crabtree, RRMM, HBA, Peck and Peck. We must go in order and review them from top to bottom. So for example, we'll start with Thompson. They were the #1 after all of the rankings. And so we will look with our rubric and say, this is what we expect from a facility study. Can Thompson meet that demand? And if they can, we need to move forward with Thompson. If there's something they aren't able to deliver, we then are able to move to Crabtree, Rohr, Baugh, and Associates, etc. So the timeline shows you that we are going to have a committee developed. The committee will include someone from the planning department from the county. It'll be our facility coordinator and supervisor. Mrs. Stevens is the chief operations officer and a school board member. And they will look at all 5 of those companies with the rubric and determine where we land. We'll meet with that company in January, and then we hope to go ahead and get the study up and running in February with completion by April. So that we can report out to both boards what the outcome of that facility study looks like.
Do you have some non-negotiables that they parameters to give them in?
We will the
Such
rubric.
as Lewis and Clark can't be expanded.
Correct.
We got 1, 2, 10, whatever acres at Madison Elementary. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Right.
Give them parameters. That way they don't go down a rabbit hole,
Right.
hit a wall that we already knew about. I guess is what I'm saying.
We'll definitely give them some of that demographic or identifying information up front. That's the work of the committee. And then we'll have the rubric, which will obviously outline our top priorities when we're evaluating those companies. And then once we identify the top company, then we'll sit down and have that demographic conversation to make sure.
Well, it's not only demographic, but it's functional.
Facility of.
Yeah, there's a lot
The
to go into
geography,
that.
what we have, what we can do with what we
Yes.
have.
Correct.
What are we underutilizing?
Who owns the land between the middle school and 207? Is that the county or the school?
Schools.
That's cool.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's another factor, you know, we've got another spot.
We
You have a
also
question, Ms.
own
Onion?
property behind the high school. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Is that
Yes.
the property you were referencing?
No,
behind the high
I'm
school?
saying the middle school in 207,
Okay.
which is across the street, so there's
Right.
other
That's
properties
only
we
like
have.
5 acres, though. That's not a ton of land. It's got a
Yeah, but I mean, that's.
But we own 250 acres right behind the middle school.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Right.
Dr. Calvert,
Yes, sir.
just go back to your students in the building number.
Mhm.
That includes preschool children. Is that correct?
This number here does include pre-K through 12.
And how many pre-K children do you have?
225.
5, and there's a little higher number, of ECSE students.
Right. Is it possible to get a breakdown of which buildings they're in, whether it's the bowling
Oh,
alley?
sure. Yeah, we have, there are preschools in all 3 elementary schools.
Correct.
So that
I just need to know
225 is pretty well divided, but we'll get you that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because you know, we talk about building capacity, but I don't, even though their students are there, I know when those buildings were built, particularly, Lewis and Clark, we didn't take preschool into consideration. So I just want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
We can
So
do that.
And they're completely
that
outside.
4581 number, they dropped it down to.
They don't count.
They do not, they're
They
not
do not
funded
count.
through.
And those are all local funding.
Right.
No.
So the
Virginia
45,
Preschool Initiative, Line, Head Start.
that number dropped.
It's a very little.
Very little,
Yes.
just the required match from Virginia preschool.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Merrick, you mentioned careers in the high school and the turf field and that type of thing, but how are we doing in our elementary schools as far as attendance and motivation there, getting that strong foundation in the bottom? Because I haven't heard a lot as far as that type of thing, except for the numbers.
Thank you for asking that. We are struggling, I will be quite frank with you, Ms. Long, in relation to chronic absenteeism. It really is an international as well as a national crisis, as evidenced by the governor, providing all-in funds to begin addressing them more extensively. And so we range anywhere from, and I don't have the December data in front of me, but 18% chronic absenteeism, upwards of 27, 28% of our student base is chronically absent. That means that in one school year of 180 days, they've missed 10% or more, which is 18 days. So to calculate it in December, of course, we divide those 18 days up by the number of months, and that is where we stand.
We bringing truant officers back?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We will be posting, if it's not already posted, an attendance officer. We're not calling it a truancy officer, a little bit of a softer name. But we will be posting that position, and it will be funded by the all-in monies.
And I just find it ironic that
Thank you, Lisa.
only 10% of the funds is allocated to chronic absenteeism. Yes, that's the major issue
Correct.
that causes students not to learn, not to be engaged,
Yes. The
not to
student apathy
build
or the school
relationships,
apathy.
not to all the things necessary to progress. And just
Totally agree.
a little concerning to me again.
Yeah, we
That-
actually
this
spoke
is
to
our
the
major
state
issue.
about that. We said, can we have flexibility? And they indicated that that was not available.
Mr. Underwood, I do have the preschool numbers for those,
Yes.
for each of those buildings,
Couple of
as of the same date, so 10/18.
Okay,
Preschool at Bowling Green is 97,
okay,
Lewis and Clark is 89,
okay.
and Madison is 64. So a total of 250 preschoolers.
Thank you.
That includes the early childhood special education as well, the students.
It does.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're
this is just 4-year-old pre-K, or is there 3?
3 as well.
Three as well.
We have mixed.
Or not as many threes,
Yeah.
but we have a pilot 3, and then of course our ECFC are 28.
Any questions on the facility study? We'll keep you posted and you'll have, we're hoping that Mr. Hughes or his designee will be able to join us on that.
As far as that committee.
Correct. Yeah, that is really what we have to share today.
Board members have any questions? Pretty close to perfect time, we started on time. No other questions?
One question. Sorry. CIP. Will there be a ranked list that comes out?
When we submit, I believe that when we submit our document electronically, that will give you that prioritization that you're looking for. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to give you updates.
Before we close, Mr. Thomas, I would just like to say.
If you'd have called me Mr. Taylor.
But I got to say this, Dr. Rollins Fells is the president-elect of the Virginia School Board Association. And I just needed to say that because I've been around a long time, but we've never had one until now.
Well, you stole that one too, didn't you? That was part of what I wanted to do at the end. Congratulations to you, Dr. Rollins Fells. That is a great achievement, and the entire county is very proud of you for that achievement. And the other one we wanted to say at the end, Mr. Copeland, Mrs. Carson's not here, but we did want to say thank you for your service on the school board. It's been a pleasure working with you. And
Been an adventure.
it has been an adventure at times, but I always try to look at more good days than bad days. So as long as we have that, we're doing okay.
Yes, sir.
But I did want to say thank you, for your service and wish you the best. Mr. Carson's not here, but I wish Mr. Carson the best. She's not going too far. I hope.
He's going to
We're
tutor.
putting her to work.
Yeah.
Oh,
If it's not every day, I'll consider it.
please.
Oh,
Um,
that's on record.
I think that's it. Yeah, somebody said if you say it, do it.
Yeah, you'll get a call tomorrow.
All right. If there's no other questions, want to thank you guys for being here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Or-
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
Have a great
Wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Aye.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you very much, sir.
To our adjourned.
Merry Christmas to you.